Welcome once again to another episode of the Real Men Podcast. I am your host, Melvin Smith. I am joined by my co-hosts, Stephen Poston, Orlando Hudson, and Donald Bell. This is a podcast where we are coming together. We're talking about life. We're talking about fatherhood. We're talking about being husbands. We're talking about men in the workplace. We're talking about just men in general and manhood and what it takes to be a man and all the good things and, the not so good things that comes along with being a man as well. How y'all doing, fellas?
Man, doing great. Been a great week.
Man, right. I got a lot of complaints I could throw at y'all, but I won't complain.
I'm doing good, man. I just saw my Eagles win, baby. So I'm doing good today.
Yes. You got to be doing real good. That's like seeing a blue moon, ain't it?
Watch your mouth. Watch your
mouth. So before we get started, let me tell our audience about our social media presence. You can meet us or you can find us on Twitter at R.E.A.L 2021. And on Instagram, Real Men 2021. On Facebook, Real Men Podcast 2021. On Stitcher, as well as on Spotify. You can also subscribe to our podcast through iTunes, and you can download our podcast on Amazon. I forgot that last time, so I had to remember it this time. Oh, and also you can also email us as well. Our email is realmanhood2021@gmail.com. All right, got all of that out the way, and now I guess what I really want to start out saying is this: it's football season.
Yes,
I get to watch some football. This is my favorite time of the year. You are.
Watch your mouth.
I just love it.
Don't go there. All right. Don't go there.
Oh, what you talking about?
Hey.
What you talking about?
Put an eye on your lip, man. Put an eye on your lip.
This ain't got nothing to do with that.
I felt your energy. I felt your energy.
That's tough. That is so tough.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, yes, it's football season. I wasn't even gonna say nothing about Ohio State losing yesterday. See, you brought it up. I wasn't even gonna say nothing.
My man said, "Put an eye on your lip."
Put an eye on your lip. Watch your mouth.
Put an eye on it, man. Put two eyes on it.
Oh boy! But you know something? I'm going to save that for another time. Okay.
I appreciate that.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All
right. You know I can be real petty.
Yes, you can. You got a track record that shows it. Oh my goodness. All right, you all. Let's go ahead and get started with our topic for today. This is part 2 of an episode that we did on giving advice to the 25-year-old us. What kind of advice would you give to the 25-year-old you? This is the second episode to this particular topic that we had. And I encourage everyone, if you haven't listened to that episode, please, go to our, podcast page and, download and check it out. And because we said some interesting things. So now we're going to go ahead and just the conclusion. We probably ain't gonna get to a conclusion, but I guess we can just go ahead and start the conversation back up, because I know we was hitting on a lot of things in our last episode that we kind of wanted to carry it over onto this episode. So brothers, y'all go ahead and get started. What's going on? I just kind of threw it out there that, didn't I?
Right.
You just threw it out there.
We were talking earlier, and if I could turn back the hands of time and have several conversations with the 25-year-old me, because 25-year-old Don didn't listen the first time, so usually it would take a couple of conversations to get a point across. But I know we touched on a lot of things, but it's just probably just a continuation. But for me, it's really stepping out more and taking more calculated risks. That's been the big thing that I struggled with earlier, for fear of failure, for fear of not wanting to do the wrong thing, often not taking any calculated risk or not wanting to pull the trigger on making a decision. I was often stagnant and slow in making decisions for fear of not wanting to fail, and not wanting to do the wrong thing. And so many businesses have been made by people who initially failed. A lot of billionaires that you see now, they didn't start out as billionaires. Their first business might have failed or flopped or whatever the case may be, but they kept going at it. Steve says it all the time. He failed his way to the top. And a lot of times we're afraid of that. And that would be a big piece for the 25-year-old me, because and I still have to challenge myself to not be afraid to fail, to not be afraid to take some calculated risk, because that's what stretches you outside of your comfort zone. Like my younger self, and as I've gotten older, we become creatures of habit, and we like that comfort zone. We like where it's safe. We like where it's familiar. But honestly, the real blessings come when we've been stretched out of that comfort zone. A lot of times, our real purpose in life and our real destiny in life doesn't lie within our comfort zone. It lies far outside of our comfort zone. It often pushes us to places and territories and experiences that are supersede our comfort zone. And so sometimes the fear of not wanting to step out of that or take risks to step out of that comfort zone hinders us. And a lot of opportunities that I should have capitalized on and maximized at an earlier age. If I had to do all over again, I would have done a better job of capitalizing on those and taking some calculated risk and stepping outside of my comfort zone, because we don't like that zone that's just out on the fringe, on the outside of the comfort zone. We like everything to stay nice and comfortable. I grew up in the summers I used to spend with my grandparents. I'm from Virginia Beach, and I really don't like the ocean. And one of the reasons that I don't like it is because when you're walking on the water, there's a current and an undercurrent. And as long as you can feel the bottom, you feel safe and you feel secure. But if you get to that place to where the current has now pushed you to a place to where you can no longer feel the bottom and you're no longer in control of where your body is going or where you're being carried, that's a very scary place to be. But often from a faith perspective, that's right where God wants us to be sometimes, at that place where we can't feel the bottom. And we don't like that feeling. That's an uneasy feeling where it's like, wait, I can't quite touch the bottom anymore. I can't. But that's where we got to push ourselves to get to sometimes. And it can be a scary thing. And so I would just tell my younger self to embrace that a little bit more, because that's really where my blessings have come, far outside my comfort zone, far outside that place where I'm comfortable. Not sure if you guys have experienced anything like that.
Man, you talk about fear, and I'll jump right in there. One of the things that I would definitely tell my 25-year-old self is not to lay down in those valleys.
Yeah.
And it's important. And I got to talk about David when he said, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. You can become overwhelmed in those valleys. And at times you just freeze. You err on the side of doing nothing. You err on the side because that space that you're in seems the safest at that time. And there's been plenty of times where I froze in the valley instead of just continuing to walk, not understanding that it's just a shadow, not truly understanding that God has me, that he knows exactly where I am, even though it may be uncomfortable for me, even though, you may not be sure what lies ahead. He's already gone out ahead of you. He already knows where you're walking in. And a lot of times what I've experienced, one thing that I would also press upon that 25-year-old kid It's that when you're going through those moments of transition, when you're going through those valleys, you can walk and be comfortable. You can walk without being fear, but more importantly, keep moving, because understand that what you're going through right now is preparing you for what's ahead. It's strengthening you for what's ahead. It's giving you the experience for what you're going to deal with that's coming ahead of you. And that's one thing I think that I would, those couple things is what I would really press upon a 25-year-old me. Knowing that I'm going to make mistakes, like I said in the previous podcast, you're going to make them. Don't carry crosses that wasn't meant for you to carry. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when you're in those valleys, you're carrying those crosses and they become heavy and they're not meant for you to carry. And you freeze.
Yeah. I think another thing that we can understand, well, that I would tell my younger self is to keep in mind that you got a future. I think a lot of young people today, they don't really think of themselves past the near future. They don't really see themselves, 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, and understanding that decisions that I make right now is going to have a great effect on my future self. I talk to kids all the time, and kids, they always trying to figure out what you talking about before you actually say it and everything. I asked them, I was like, how many of you all consider yourselves mature? And every last single one of them, would go ahead, raise their hands, these, 10 to, 16, 17-year-olds. And I was like, okay, cool. So, how about, when you get about, 25, do you think that you're going to know more than you know right now? And then most of them would be like, yeah. And I was like, okay, are you going to consider yourself mature 25-year-old or 30-year-old? And they was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so do me a favor. Don't let your present self put your future self in any kind of a situation that you really don't want to be in. Don't let the 17-year-old, because you think you all mature now, right? You think you got it going on. You got everything lined up in a row. All right. But don't do anything right now that your older self is going to be like, man, I should not have did that. Man, I should have did this. Man, I should. Because guess what? Because you're going to be mature at 25-year-old right now, because you're going to know more at 25 than you know at 18. Because, at that age, 17, 18, a lot of, they start to come into their own. They know a whole lot, right? But at the same time, if you let them know your 25-year-old self is going to be more mature than what you are right now, put them in the best possible position that you can. And and that should be able to help you out. That helped me out a lot, because growing up, well, I was like, I always figured that I was going to do something. I always figured that I was going to be a part of some kind of movement or whatever, activist. But I found out I was going to be a preacher, and I was like, all right, cool. I'm cool with that. But at the same time, I didn't want my 18, 19, 20, 25-year-old self to put me in a position that my 30, 35, 40-year-old self, would have to continue to deal with. And I mean, you're not going to get everything right. We always going to do something, that's not quite right. But guess what? You can pick yourself up and, dust yourself off and, keep doing what God called for you to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Y'all want me to say something behind? No, y'all.
Well, you got something to say.
I thought about this question over and over again, and I listened to what we said the last time, and one of the things that I kind of took away and I thought about it is if I had to talk to 25-year-old Steve, I would tell him a couple things. I would tell him would be, number one, to be empowered. To O's point, I think Don said something about it last time as well. So much hangs on the two words yes or no, right?
Mm.
And many times we just give our power away, and not being empowered by not empowering ourselves. And I think our brothers who are part of the 5% Nation of Islam, they call it knowledge of self. When you know when they realize that anything is possible that I want to achieve, and it's kind of different for us, but still the same principle exists, right? Of course, our thought is we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us, but still there's a part we have to play in that.
Exactly.
And so I would encourage 25-year-old Steve to be empowered, and don't let anyone steal whatever dream you have, whatever whatever you want to achieve. Impossible doesn't exist. It's been said that impossible is nothing because the very words say I'm possible. So just realizing that you could do that, you can be empowered. And then the second part of that, though, the second part of empowerment comes about. So the first thing is you realize you can do anything. And then the second side to that coin is that you have to be relentless, right? Failure's a part of the equation. No is a part of the equation. Messing up is a part of the equation, but be relentless in your pursuit, man. I would encourage 25-year-old Steve never to stop until you get it. I think Les Brown has a speech out. It's been out for years that it's not over until I win. And I think that's the type of mindset, especially if we're talking to, we're talking about men, but more specifically, all of us are Black men. And so that is something that I think our young men need to hear, is to be relentless in what you're pursuing. Be empowered, be relentless, go after it, and just do not quit. Don't take no for an answer. And it's a challenge, but you have to, see the finish line, but enjoy the process or enjoy the race. And it takes a while to get to the finish line. Some people get there quicker than you will, but see the finish line, but also take time to enjoy the race. Yeah, man. Those are some things that I was just thinking about. It's like, yeah, you've got to go after it and not quit. Not quit. Be relentless.
Don, you mentioned something when you were speaking, when you was talking about fear. And that's such a huge thing, man. And I think one of the things that we as men, we don't like to share what our fears are. We'll go ahead, internalize those fears and try and deal with them ourselves. So one of the things that I would like to, tell our younger self or my younger self is embrace the fear, but at the same time, you're not in this race by yourself. We need to surround ourselves with people that can push us forward. You know what I mean? You're not in this by yourself. You don't have to go through this by yourself. There's other men. There's older men. There's men your age. That can help you get through this thing. And believe it or not, there's other people that don't even know you that's counting on you to get through this thing so that you can be the blessing that God called you to be. So one of the things, with that fear thing is, it can, just like you said, man, it can paralyze you, leave you stagnant, leave you, regret. It has so many offshoots from that. But at the same time, we got to understand, that we're not out here by ourselves. And I think as men, sometimes it's hard for us to reach out for help. And we need to do a better job at reaching out, at embracing help? Well, first thing at, letting somebody know that you need help in the first place, and then, moving from there.
So let me throw this question out there for us to answer. What has fear taught us?
Fear has taught me that I have greater capacity than I thought. Because in those moments where I was really fearful and I had to overcome my fear, I actually pushed myself to a greater level of capacity than I ever thought that I would have.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fear is there's a poem, fear is a mind killer, and it can really alter how you view things. But once you learn how to control it and face it, it can be a great motivator and a great teaching tool for future, so you can avoid future mishaps. And so fear has pushed me to a greater capacity. I look at things that I face now that a younger version of me would have just stalled in and just froze, like you talked about. When I got to a valley, I have laid down in a valley. I didn't do, the Bible says, though we walk through, I just got to the valley,
Keep
caught
moving.
the squat, laid down, and just stayed there. But now when I do come across what can be a valley experience, I keep going through. And that was something that I had to overcome, and that was a fearful thing. I think back to, what we faced earlier this year with, us being out of our house for 89 days with the storm and all that. Man, 10 years ago, oh man, I'd have lost my mind. I would have been just crazy. But that, in that moment, in that time, particularly from a leadership perspective and me leading my household, we were so discombobulated that if I was not just controlling things and leading by example and not being fearful, we would not have made it. And so fear can also strengthen you. Just like reps in the gym, fear can speed up some reps in a gym, because it can make you a stronger, and you will surprise yourself how strong you have become because you've had to overcome previous fears. And this last experience that we went through, when we came through that thing, and I hadn't lost my mind. We still had savings. We still didn't miss a beat. First of all, I put it in God's hands. I said, okay, God, well, clearly this is something you have to be in control of, because I can't do this. And that I just let him lead the way. But talk about the comfort zone, man. We were literally out of our comfort zone, like legit, like we were uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that fear piece is huge. That fear, that's things that fear is. I do have the ability for greater capacity because of overcome.
So I'm going to echo everything that Don just put on the table. In addition to that, I'm going to add that one of the things that fear has taught me is that if you allow it, it will take you hostage. And it will have you thinking that the ransom for your release is so high that you'll never be able to make it, that you're going to spend a lifetime in hostage as a hostage.
Yep.
But one of the things that it has also taught me is that the terms of our release has already been negotiated at the cross. So we had the greatest hostage taker of all negotiate the terms and the conditions of our release. And we don't. You
gotta preach. Okay, you gotta preach real quick, Doc.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Preach, right. I felt a little something right there, man.
I got a keyboard in the other room. I need
chill on me, man. But yeah, man, the terms of our release has already been negotiated. and we're doing nothing but wasting time sitting there being paralyzed, overwhelmed by that fear, and just not moving. I look at things now, Don, to your point. I look at things that froze me during certain situations where I was dealing with adversity, and I look back on those things now and I say that was nothing. But I know that those things prepared me for situations that was coming. And I'll be able to give that testimony in great detail here, man, probably within the next 6 months, just about my experiences over the last 4 years and the things that I've been dealing with. And I had something that happened in 2014 that just, it was crippling. I had never felt anything like it before in my life. And I look at the 2019 to 2020 and I look back at the 2017 and I'm calling them chumps. You know, like you went through all that. You had all them random sucker attacks, and God was preparing you for this.
Right.
So yeah, man. Do not allow hostage. Do not allow fear to take you hostage. Your terms have already been negotiated. Your release.
Wow.
Terms of our release have already been negotiated.
That'll preach, brother.
That'll preach.
Oh, yeah.
That'll preach.
It does preach.
right.
Oh my goodness, man. You know, I guess just to hit on that, what you just said, fear, we have to learn how to use it, because you know something,
I agree.
it's going to hit us. Okay. But guess what? I think I believe that we can allow fear to be an indicator as to where we need a little bit more strength in, maybe what we need a little bit more faith in. So so now you got to be absolutely truthful with yourself. Am I being fearful right now? And that's when you got to have those honest conversations with yourself, you know, because you know, we can kind of sugarcoat things. We can, you know, just rake over the top and not really get into the, you know, to the nitty gritty of certain things. But when you start talking about fear, why am I fearing right now? What's going on? You know, what's around this situation? Am I not having enough trust in God? You know, we can use that as an indicator as to areas in our life that we need to grow in.
Yep. Yeah, you guys nailed everything I was thinking about with that question. You know, what has fear taught you? And just to kind of piggyback on your point, Melvin, I think fear is definitely necessary, and we definitely have to use it. I think the things that make us afraid come into our lives to teach us a valuable lesson. And that lesson is the object is not to be fearless, but the object is to be courageous. Because if you don't have fear, you can't have courage.
Exactly.
Because courage means to move forward in the sight of fear, in the experience of fear. Because otherwise, what do I need to be courageous for if I'm not afraid of anything?
Right.
And so I think fear comes to teach us how to be courageous. And I think that's a valuable lesson. You know, if I can encourage our listeners, it's especially our men, you don't have to be fearless, but you have to be courageous, because fear is going to show up, you know, and each of us has a different fear. And I think also fear comes to show us, to your point, Melvin, boundaries, right? So like, I need to know boundaries. I need to have boundaries in my life, but there are some times where boundaries have to be crossed. So, you know, if I'm on this level, to your point, Melvin, if I'm on this level and God is like, okay, I need you, and O said this as well, you know, it's time for you to grow past this level, then many times he sends things or allows things to come into our life that we are either afraid of, and we've known we've been afraid of them, or it's something sudden that we were like, whoa, like, where did this come from? And how do I, to Don's point, how do I this tragedy that I'm experiencing now that I didn't ask for, I didn't see it coming, but I'm right smack dab in the middle of it. And how do I move through this? And so I think fear kind of works in all those different areas. But once again, the true, I don't know if it's test or the true challenge is to not be fearless, but to be courageous.
Wow.
And when you understand that, you'll stop going through things and start growing through things.
Yes.
Because it's a difference. It's a major difference when you're growing through something instead of just going through it. I went through a lot. And if I had realized that I was growing through it, the process would have been I'd embraced it a lot more. So yeah, it's important to grow through your circumstances and your situations.
But you said, go ahead, Don.
And that fear and courage scenario that you gave, Steve, is so vitally important, because the way we manage, handle, embrace fear alters the lens by which we view life as we are experiencing it in that moment, and how we view circumstances, right? So if I stay stuck, if I stay frozen, my vision is frozen. And then it limits how I'm able to view my situation, and will often cause you to stay in your situation longer than you have to be, because your sight or your vision is tainted. And so as you are growing through those things, as Orlando talked about, now the way I view things and my perspective on things, challenge, adversity, conflict, conflict resolution, those types of things, my view on those things is different now, because my view on and managing my fear is different, right? So it definitely, that'll be something that a piece that I would talk to my younger self about is, realizing that the way you handle fear can alter how the lens by which you view the world and your circumstances. Some people never get out of that. Some people stay stuck in that place forever. They never, the scales never fall from their eyes, and they never get past that place. And it's limiting. It is very limiting. It can be debilitating, because it can cause you to just stay very, very stuck and nearsighted, if you will, and not view life from a panoramic view, if you will.
Wow.
Yeah, it moves you, that type of mindset, knowing that I have to be courageous, and as we said, not stopping in the valley. It moves you from being fixed to like we're saying, a growth mindset. So you're now looking at adversity as an opportunity. Right. It's an opportunity for me to grow. It's an opportunity for me to change. It's an opportunity for me to acquire a new skill set, right? That we can use in the next challenge. And so, that mental shift, it definitely has to happen. Yeah.
So Steve, what you're saying is, one thing that I think that all of our younger selves should know is that you got to have a different kind of a mindset. Your mindset has to be about moving forward. Your mindset has to be that I'm not going to get stuck in the situation I'm in right now. Your mindset has to be that I do have a future, that I do have something that God has called for me to do, and I'm not going to allow anything to stop me from being the man or woman that God has called for me to be, no matter what. And if that's the mindset, we can handle fear, because it's going to come, but you're going to handle it differently. You're going to even handle your haters differently. You're gonna handle a whole plethora of things differently. Why? Because something. I'm going through something, but guess what? I'm going to be somebody. God is molding me. God is making me right now, even in my fear. Something, God is still using fear as a tool, to get me to become the man that he has called for me to be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
One thing that you said, Steve, that we can possibly consider as maybe a final pivot point is you said sometimes we're presented with an opportunity to change. And I would definitely encourage my younger self to embrace change. We grew up kind of in a very, very interesting era because we were coming out and probably were influenced by our fathers and grandfathers who grew up in a very, very traditional and regimented way of life. But then we came through and grew up through the era of the internet being evolved and cable TV and social media coming into play and all of that. And so the pace of life has quickened and it has evolved so much that you cannot afford to stay stuck, not just from a fierce perspective, but even in our old way of thinking. Yeah. And our old mentalities and our old, way we look. You were talking even now, from a kingdom perspective, as we're transitioning out of COVID, the church mindset has to change. Like we can't just, count money at the table and still give away attendance banners and all that kind of stuff. Like we have to change to stay effective and to stay relevant, right? And so just embracing change, because I used to hate change, and it's something that I still have to push myself. Because I don't want to get new slippers. I like the way my old, tattered, run over, shredded,
comfortable
slippers feel. It's going to take me a minute to break in a new pair, but I got these just right. So I hate change, but change is necessary. I kept a BlackBerry forever. Like the buttons didn't work no more. Like I couldn't press the little things.
Trackball gone.
It's gone. Like it was just done. And I went kicking and screaming to the smartphone era. And but I lost so much productivity that I could have been enjoying had I embraced change that much sooner. And the pace at which life happens now, you don't really have the ability, the opportunity to stay stuck for a long period of time, because life will just like legit the next day will pass you by. Right. Stuff is ever evolving and changing. Like I look at my children, and I just when I'm catching up to whatever is the latest little thing or whatever, it's changing. It's over to something else. It's over and done. Yeah. And so that embracing that change piece, because man, that is so critical. It's like, wait, we're not doing that no more. We're not doing that no more. We don't nobody come pump your gas for you. Like you don't drive us to the place where somebody actually. No, you gotta pump your own gas. Not
unless you live in New Jersey.
Right. Well, that's for different reasons.
so just so you know, Don, TBD is no longer to be determined. That now stands for Trackball Don.
Bro, mine was done.
That's what that stands for now. Trackball Don.
Yeah, and you just came up with that too, didn't you?
Trackball Don. I was a beast with it though.
TBD,
man. I was a beast with my broke BlackBerry. I was a beast with it.
Wow.
Oh man.
But yeah, that's
wow.
That change piece is good. Well, fellas, I think that might be a good place for us to pivot and call it a session. We thank y'all so much for tuning in to the Real Men podcast. It's always an exciting experience, and so thank you all for tuning in. And we definitely want to encourage you all to follow us on all of our social media platforms. Again, you can follow us on Twitter at real_men2021, on IG at Real Men, on Facebook at Real Men Podcast 2021. You can also catch our podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, and Amazon. And you can email us or follow us on our YouTube at realmanhood2021 at gmail.com. So in closing, I'm Don Bell, followed with wonderful co-hosts, Brother Melvin Smith, Orlando Hudson, and Steve Olson. Thank you all for tuning in. We're four men dealing with this thing called life. We'll see y'all next time.
God bless.
God bless.